Hey everyone, it's good to see you back. I've taken a very long break when it comes down to build crafting, and now that I'm back, I can show off all types of content I've been building up since then. So today, we'll be looking at one of the most underrated exotics in game, the Khepri Horn, and why such a slept on exotic is actually pretty powerful now with this cool build I also created for it. With the ability to suspend, scorch, and ignite, and regenerate tons of abilities, it's become a odd but pretty flexible exotic that will see some use in endgame, and I'm your man for it. It's done with exotic armor, Khepri Horn, with its exotic effect, Solar Rampart. It states, Solar final blows recharge your barricade. While you have a Solar super equipped, casting your barricade unleashes a wave of solar energy that damages and scorches targets. Combatants damaged and guardians defeated by these waves are enveloped in a sunspot. So as of recently, Bungie has buffed Khepri's Horn to now produce the 3 waves of flame instead of the 1. They also provide sunspots and kills, so combining this with Drenger's Lash, for example on prismatic, will allow us to stun and cook enemies who are now suspended. Now personally to me, the ability to have 3 flame waves instead of the 1 is the biggest buff that the exotic deserves to get, as the singular 1 flame wave never really hit as hard as it would expect. On top of that, it also felt lacking in terms of damage being provided, and overall the exotic just felt too gimmicky to use at times. And now however, it can at least do noticeable damage against adds, while also placing additional damage via sunspots. So as long as you net a kill, you can deal additional damage and get class energy back fairly fast. Our second exotic is Dragon's Breath, with its exotic effect, Composite Propellant, which states, rockets embed themselves in struck targets and periodically inject incendiary fuel that inflicts scorch. The longer this weapon goes without firing, the more fuel the next rocket contains. When it comes to firepower, the Dragon Breath has got your back. This bulky but powerful rocket launcher is great against adds and bosses and will deal with some heavy damage wherever you fire it to. Now the real reason I chose this is that this will interact with Khepri's Horn exotic effect, where solar final blows recharges your class ability by 15%. Having 2 solar weapons, ideally one that can trigger incandescent, is the ideal way to go for quick ability regeneration. It means that for me, I can get rid of my primary weapon that has strategist perk on it, and swap it out for another weapon that focuses on applying an elemental debuff or improved damage instead. Whatever you choose, just make sure your class ability does not suffer for it. For aspects and fragments, we have the following. A Drenger's Lash, where activating your class ability will produce a ripple that will suspend anyone caught by it. Consecration, where while sliding and activating a charged melee, you launch yourself into the air and shoot out a wave of solar. Activating the melee again causes you to slam to the ground and create a bigger wave that can ignite. A Facet of Hope, where having an elemental buff active will regenerate your class ability. A Facet of Balance, where rapidly defeating targets with light abilities grants melee energy. Rapidly defeating targets with dark abilities grants grenade energy. A Facet of Ruin, which increases the blast range of ignitions, shatter, and frozen targets after kills. A Facet of Dawn, where powered melee hits against targets grants you Radiant. Powered melee final blows makes human allies Radiant. A Facet of Grace, where defeating targets with kinetic weapons grant you bonus transcendence energy. And Facet of Purpose, where picking up an Aura Power will grant you a number of elemental buffs. The main focus of the build you should focus on is buffing both your aspect and class ability as well. With how simple the build is when focusing on one key aspect, you don't need to worry about maximizing how much energy you need to get for the key. With how simple the build is when focusing on one key exotic, you don't need to worry about maximizing how much energy you need to keep the specific target going. In our instance, having Facet of Hope, Khepris, and Facet of Grace is enough to regenerate a class ability over and over again as we please. You can add on class ability regeneration perk as well, such as the strategist perk, but this will depend on your playstyle and if you feel it's worth it or not. When it comes to consecrations usage, we have Facet of Ruin, Dawn and Purpose, which will all help us with maximizing the most of our ability on hand. This was chosen as it pairs well with the suspending abilities we have on cooldown. Plus, it means that we also have a strong secondary ability on hand when things do get bad, or we need to quickly clean up the area. Although I do have Dragon's Breath, which is great for ad clearing, this won't always be available, and sometimes it's best to not use the following when our simple class abilities can clean up instead. So overall, the build will be split into 2 forms when active, but depending on the situation on hand, you either be using your class ability, or you'll be using your melee. For the mods and stats, we have Resilience marked with the highest priorities for the build. Resilience we have ours at tier 10 for a 30% damage reduction. We haven't added any additional resistance mod, as I wanted to make sure my secondary weapon of choice had enough ammo available for it to be used consistently. Now, of course, adding harmonic resistance mod for the extra element of resistance will be extremely helpful, but this will be a choice for you to decide on which one is best. Discipline, we have ours at tier 8 for a 1 minute 38 second cooldown via shackle grenades. The choice of grenades don't matter in the context of the build, as we will be mainly relying on our class ability to do the heavy lifting. This goes the same for our melee, but both of these abilities will have ways to regenerate their usage as we play, aka being transcendent. Now, considering we are using Drenger's Last, which will stun enemies, and then use Khepri to do damage, I personally think doubling down and using shackle grenades are the best way forward for the build. Being able to stun multiple targets at once gives us more breathing room when needed, and since we are combining this with concentration aspect as well, it means we can land our hits with better accuracy along the way. Now, when it comes down to the additional mods though, this is what I would recommend for buffing other key stats along the way. Impact Induction times 2 for a 17% grenade buff, Momentum Transfer times 1 for a 12% melee buff, a Distribution for a 4% all ability cooldown, and then Bomber for an additional 12% melee buff. A lot of the buffs will go towards melee, but we won't invest too much going through it. Additional mods, we have the following: Heavy Ammo Finder, Reserves and Scavenger mods for a heavy weapon, Harmonic and Kinetic Siphon for creating orbs of power via matching weapon types, Charged Up times 1 for increasing the maximum stack of armor charges by +1, Elemental Charge where collecting elemental pickers will grant you energy towards an armor charge, Solar Surge times 1 for a 10% solar weapon buff, and Powerful Attraction where using your class ability will collect nearby orbs of power. As we have covered the exotic heavy weapon, I would then advise you to pick some super weapons for the build. What I recommend are all optional, so please keep this in mind. Our primary will be the Patron of Lost Causes with Strategists and Kinetic Tremors. While Scout Rifles won't see too much usage in endgame content that holds champions, the following is going to be great for picking off targets at long distances, while also making use of the Strategist perk. Now, Strategist allows us to recover a 10% of our class ability back per kill made, which is greatly benefiting Khepri's Horn effect. Of course, since we do have other ways to generate class abilities on the fly, you can of course skip this perk and go with something else instead. For secondary, we then have the Aberrant Action with Ambitious Assassin and Incandescent. Recommended for the build, as it can deal with anti-barrier and potentially unstoppables. The following, when mixed with Facet of Ruin and Exotic, will allow us to spread scorching ignitions on a far wide scale than shown. Although I would recommend other weapons that are solo designed, quite honestly, this is a very easy weapon to get for everyone, and is very strong without the added uses of damage perk, so it fits pretty well with what we need, and combined with our current exotic armor, is exactly what you're probably going to need. Out of a lot of exotics that have been buffed, a Khepri's Horn with Dragon's Breath combo is pretty sweet for being simple and easy to use, while also having plenty of ways for it to be used wherever you go in game. Khepri used to be an okay exotic to use, and never really offered anything else outside of his area of expertise. However, the update has allowed the exotic to spread his solar effect on a wider scale now, with thanks to the ability to shoot out 3 solar waves instead of the standard 1. On top of that, the solar waves can also scorch and create sunspots upon defeated enemies, so using this with a solar subclass and making use of our sunspots aspect would in theory allow you to stay in one spot forever. Now, although this hasn't been tried out on my end yet, the prismatic version of the build gives you a brief snippet as to what it may potentially be like to shut down areas one after another with the solar subclass instead. But the main change we have added to enhance this set is the Drenger's Last aspect, just to make the full effect even more stronger. And personally, this is all you would need to create an ideal Khepri's Horn all-rounder build. Including Dragon's Breath to the set allows you to shut down oncoming enemies quite easily, while your barricade will recover over time via the fragments or weapon perks being used. It's quite a simple build that everyone can use, and you really don't need to have half the things presented. Only issue the build may have is the lack of healing factor being incorporated some way or how, but this can be added from a single weapon perk or mods that provide just an ounce of health available. If you're returning the game and want a quick but effective setup for carrying you, then I believe this build may be suitable in the long run for you, simply because it's pretty easy to use. So there we have it. I hope you all enjoyed the build breakdown. If you have any thoughts on content shared, then please leave a comment below. While if you enjoyed the content and want more of these videos, then leave a like and a sub while you're here. A dim link for the build is located below in the pin section, and I do advise you check out my playlist for more. It was great sharing today's video with you all, and I hope to see you again soon.